let's talk about you, right? And firstly, is what inspired you to be a coach, to become a coach?
So I did a lot of work. I mean, I studied for years to be a doctor. I was a doctor for a little while. And I mean, I wanted to have a job where I helped people. But then when
Mm,
I was a doctor, I always felt like I'd never had enough time. I never have enough time to invest in people's, their habits, their lifestyle, things like this. And that was stuff that I did my own research on. And that was stuff that I was really passionate about. And I felt like that was a thing that those basic things like sleep, diet, exercise, all of these things that I think that's the foundation of everybody's life. But I couldn't have enough time to do that as a doctor. And so I thought, I want to work more on the ground, talk to people when they're not in the hospital, when they're at home, when they're,
mm,
when they're stressed with their work, things like that. Because I think those are the things that make the difference. And it's the things that happen every day that are really the most important. So I felt like, I can use my knowledge actually in a coaching context that actually gives people more benefit than I could give them because I'd actually have more time to dedicate to them.
So not having enough time was a part of it, and I think that you've kind of mentioned to me before about also feeling like you were getting to people too late.
Yes. So unfortunately, because of the system that we have, and just because of general health it's based on, diseases and things that have a hard set of criteria.
Hmm.
But, you only get to that point after a certain amount of time. It doesn't happen that you're completely healthy one day and then you end up having a disease or diabetes or like cardiovascular disease. Like it doesn't just happen as though you're completely healthy, then you get a disease. There's a spectrum. You get to that point over decades of time. And I just knew that there were things that we could do before someone got so unhealthy that they had to come to hospital. That meant that they could look after themselves. They could learn the skills. They could get the mindsets that allowed them to invest in themselves
Mm,
before they sort of go downwards and get to the point where they need a doctor or need surgery or need something that actually medication that really ideally you should avoid medication or surgery unless you really need it. But I think a lot of the health conditions we have now in the modern world, we could have prevented years ago. And so actually coaching people when they get that little feeling like, oh, I've gained a bit of weight and I don't really or I feel a bit tired. And I think identifying it then rather than waiting 10 years and having it manifest in like actual health conditions is how we can actually make everybody much more healthy.
sure. No, totally. And at the end of the day, right, it's much easier to stay healthy than it is to recover from a health condition.
Yeah.
It's much easier to prevent rather than repair. And you know, in coaching, we get to do a lot of work on preventing people from getting really unwell just by creating healthy habits and routines in their life.
The thing is, it's sad that in hospital, I get to see quite a lot of things. I get to see people when they actually get way too far down the line. And so,
Mm,
we like to prevent things, and actually preventing things is possible after a certain point, right? It takes it we're basically like elastic bands. You can stretch yourself, you can stretch your body, stretch your mind a bit too much. But
mm,
then if you do the right things, you can get back to where you were. But then after a certain point, like any elastic band, you can just snap and there is no way back. And I've seen that way too many times. And I couldn't live with myself just being on that end. I really wanted to stop people even getting into hospital.
So, who are you passionate about helping? Who are you particularly passionate about helping?
I've always been one that has sort of put my work first. I've always been somebody that's put other people first, put my work first. And so I think people that like just the everyday person that has, has done those things for too long and has
Mm,
actually realized that they need to invest in themselves. Those are the people that I can really connect with. I understand exactly the bad habits of not putting yourself first. And so I really love working with people that have had that journey similar to my own, but then are actually ready now to commit to invest in themselves and change their lives because they can see that they deserve something better. Those just everyday people, everybody's got work stress, everybody's got family stress, everybody's got relationship stress, health stress, all of these things, but they never put themselves first. And I feel like the people that have had that, but now they're ready to make a change, those are the people that I really love working with.
There's something in there about people realizing that they deserve to put themselves first and take care of themselves.
Yeah, we're our own worst critic. We are our own, we're our worst fan. You know what I mean? We're our biggest hater. And so we often we treat ourselves worse than we treat any of our friends. It's funny. You see this in medicine, actually. This is a really funny statistic, is that people are less, so sort of the concordance of medicines, as though, how often are people taking the medicines that they've been given? Find that people actually give their pets medicine more often than they give themselves medicine, because they care about their pets more than they do themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's a great stat. Yeah, I see it so much in coaching, right? We see it loads, right? That inner voice comes out. How critical people are of themselves. How bad we are in general at celebrating our own achievements and recognizing our strengths. We see it in other people, but we can be so critical of ourselves, harsh on ourselves without realizing it. And all of that feeds into the same problem, right? That we don't think that we deserve to put ourselves first, and we don't put ourselves first.
Yeah, like it gets to a point where you dread waking up and going to the life that you have built for yourself. Like the life that you have built for yourself is what other people have told you to build, and then it becomes your own trap, right?
Yeah.
People need to be free. People need to fill their cup first, and then they can feel abundant, and then they can give to everybody else. You can be the best. I think the thing about coaching is that it's an individual thing, and it's once you realize that actually investing in yourself is how you reinvest in your relationships. It's how you invest in your job. It's investing in you, not it's not about buying a new outfit. It's about investing in yourself to make yourself, and then you work on yourself to make yourself look better. There's nothing that makes somebody more healthy or confident or a better sort of husband or son or brother than investing in themselves, right? There's nothing you can buy that can give you that same thing for the rest of your life. Is investing in yourself. That's the only thing that gets you those benefits for the rest of your life.
100%. So you talk about coming from a deprived area of East London on your profile. You stated that, and I'm curious about how that part of your identity relates to your mission and shapes you.
So, as I've said, I care about the everyday person that has work stress, that isn't working the job they necessarily like. They're doing a bit of overtime. They find it difficult to see their kids, and you know what it is. I think one of the very, very interesting things is that I've seen both sides. I've been, in East London, just in my, normal school, normal people, but then also, been to Cambridge, been to medical school, seeing people that are much more well off and seeing the differences that people have. And it's interesting because actually everybody's stressed with work, and everybody's doesn't invest in their relationships and their family and their health as much. And it's made me reflect and have much more perspective on the problems that everybody has. And so no matter who you are, it's always a matter of investing in yourself. And having seen that, having almost seen the types of people that, people are often they're pitted against each other as if, oh, you and me are different. We're not the same. But actually you realize that every human suffers from the same things. And when you deal with those things, and you can actually deal with those things in coaching. And so I think, unlike some of my peers that I went to uni with or went to medical school with, I think I have a perspective of the problems that the everyday person faces, and I help them with that.
It might not look the same on the surface, but as you know, in coaching, we don't stay at the surface. We go down a few layers, right? And once you peel all the layers back, it's the same fears, doubts, and insecurities that impact all of us.
People that come from humble beginnings, or people that have a culture that is invested in work and physical changes. It's like, okay, how much money do I have? How much, like, what car do I have? What house do I have? And so people, especially people that come from humble beginnings, those are where most of their problems came from when they were younger. And so actually they just want to remove those problems for themselves as adults and for their children later on. But then in doing so, you neglect the internal experience of how that feels day to day. And you forget about how satisfied you are day to day. And you realize that eventually that once you have enough money and enough of, you have a way to transport, you have shelter over your head, you realize that actually it's all about what's going on in here that determines whether you're happy or not. We've seen enough celebrities, we've seen enough high profile people that have everything materially, and you can keep buying more material things, you can keep spending your money outwardly, but then that doesn't make anyone happy. And it's actually about investing internally that really makes a difference as to whether you're happy or not.
Absolutely. 100%. So what's your long-term mission? What's your goal for coaching and beyond?
So my mission is to equip people with the tools to look after themselves. In an ideal world, doctors are only needed for really, really exceptional things, right? And, no one can get an appointment. No one can speak to their GP. No one can, A&E takes so long. But actually, really, I in an ideal world, in my ideal utopian world, only emergencies and things of that nature go to A&E. All the preventable stuff that we can modify, like our diets, like our exercise, our sleep, our stress. If we all actually had the knowledge and understood ourselves and how to make that happen for us in the world, we looked after ourselves, we all did the right things for our own health and for our own goals sustainably, and everybody's happier because everyone's filling up their cup first. Everybody's looking after themselves first. Everybody's more equipped to help everyone else once they've invested in themselves. And so the ideal world, the dream that I have had since being a medical student, was that everybody could be their own GP, in a sense. Everyone could be their own doctor, at least in the first instance. And then if you can't figure it out yourself with the knowledge that you have, then you can ask for help afterwards. And then, people would also feel more empowered. They'd be happy and they could give each other advice. And so, we wouldn't have many of the problems that we have now.
Sure. Sounds like a great goal. Sounds like a long-term goal that could keep you going, right? Could give you purpose for a long time.
Yeah. I think that there are multiple pillars that we need to think about: physical health, mental health, social health. And then there's something, whether it's spiritual health or whatever you want to call it, it's something bigger than you. You need something that is bigger than you, that wakes you up in the morning, that makes you feel like what you're doing is worthwhile. It's the reason why, I switched from being a medic to being a coach, is that you want to wake up and feel like you're doing the right thing and you're making the right impact. And as we've said, you're like, other people's lives When you live for other people, you can build your own trap that you don't actually like, you don't feel is important, and so you need that pillar of your life to feel fulfilled, because what's the point otherwise?
If anyone's watching this interview and wondering about whether or not they should explore coaching or just try it, right, what would you say to them?
I'd say there's no better investment of your time or your money or your effort. There is no better place to invest it than yourself. You are the only thing that you can guarantee that you're going to have until you die. You are your best friend. You have to be, if you hate yourself, if you're not making decisions in your best interest, things are not gonna work out too well, and you're not gonna be happy unless you invest in building a integrated version of yourself that you love, that can serve you for the longest amount of time. I don't know if there's anything more valuable than doing coaching, even for a small amount of time, just to get insight on what you've been doing wrong, what you could do better. You don't know things that you don't know. You can't tell yourself what you're doing wrong, because if you knew, you wouldn't be in the mess that you're in, right? You would have solved your problem already. But having somebody that has actually worked with multiple people, seen the commonalities between all of them, and then has helped somebody with the same problem, it's invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. You can't buy anything else that is more valuable than investing in yourself.